Welcome back to the video manual series of the Cessna 172 and Xplane 11. This time, as a true digital student would, I will be teaching basic flight concepts and rules as if you are new in the classroom and this is your first time learning about aviation. So before you sit through a yawn-a-thon, you've been warned, this video is similar to the on-the-ground training that real pilots would receive, just super basic. Let's cover the who, what, where, and when of flying.
Lawlessness.
Who, you might ask, is able or crazy enough to fly a hunk of metal through the air? Well, the organization in the United States of America that controls the majority of requirements is the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA for short. To be eligible to learn, a student must be 14 years or older for a glider or balloon, or 16 years old if you don't envision your life floating around in a balloon looking at cool kids in their self-propelled airplanes.
Hi, 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 hi.
The FAA requires you to take a written test known as the Integrated Airman Certification and Rating Application. Fly with a certified flight instructor. Get medical clearance, and you must stick with the plane you have been endorsed to fly. In summary, the FAA are the police of the sky. They have designated speed limits, altitude restraints, designated airspace for certain planes and clearances. They are the guys that sound really cool at first when they talk fast, but once you understand what information they are giving you, it's basically just old school GPS dialogue with which radio you should have been listening to and exactly what you have been cleared to do.
We're going to change the radio to whatever I want. And we're going to squawk whatever we want.
So let's talk about the what of flying. The goal of flying is to not crash. This is number one. In order for that to be possible, in more populated areas, there are control towers where the FAA directs traffic. They're called air traffic controllers. These lads spend their days looking out for potential issues with routes and ensure that pilots don't crash into each other. When you file a flight plan, when necessary, they will review it and approve it or modify it based on weather, other routes, or traffic that is a higher priority than you. It should also mention that as a beginner pilot, basically everyone is higher priority than you, and so if there's an F-35 pilot in the area, a Coast Guard doing search and rescue, or an active life flight mission in your area, be ready to do what you're told and to get out of the way. Rest assured, air traffic controllers will make it clear if you are not doing what you're supposed to do. Just make sure to keep your radios tuned correctly.
Where? So to answer this basic question of where we can fly, let's talk about the types of airspace. Think of different airspace like different clubs. Each club has a requirement in order to be a member of it, so you have to be doing certain things. If you don't meet those airspace requirements, you're not allowed to be in that club. So first off, the map that you have, you're going to look at your chart to see what airspace you're in. When you know what airspace you're in, you know what kind of rules you need to follow, and if you should even be there. But the first and easiest thing, let's start with Class A. Class A airspace is defined as anything about 18,000 feet to 60,000 feet. Alright, and in order to be in that airspace, you have to either be a jet or a turboprop airplane. So you need to be going pretty quick. If you don't meet that requirement, you got to stay below that selected airspace, or you have to have some certification to get there. Now, the upper limit, Class E, I don't think you're going to be going higher than 60,000 feet if you're in a Cessna right now, so we won't even look at that. Class B airspace, it is anything from ground level up to the maximum of 14.5. Right here is where it tailors off. It'll be different depending on the airport and the requirements of that area. And then we go to Class C. So Class C is just a simplified version of Class B. So a little less traffic, a little bit less requirements, but it still is the upside down cake form. And it goes usually with a max altitude of about 4,000 feet. So it just depends on the area or the airport, but just keep an eye out. That's about the average of where it would be, and it'll go slower. The radius of this area would be about 20 miles away. So 20 miles is probably the max distance that you would see from entering Class C. It just depends on the area that you're in. Class D is anything that goes up to about 2,500 feet. So a little less. And the distance from the center of the airport is usually a little bit less, but it varies on the airport itself. Class E is anything in between. So this whole bluish area is anything that is not the other ones. And that's just designed to make it so you still have to pay attention to air traffic control, still have to pay attention to the fellow pilots, but it's not as controlled as those other ones. And lastly, we have Class G airspace. Class G airspace is uncontrolled, meaning that there can be model rockets, model airplanes, all sorts of craziness going on. Obviously birds, probably more likely at 400 feet as opposed to 60,000 feet. But I don't know. So you have to pay attention to power lines, to buildings, to all that kind of stuff. Class G airspace also, it is probably going to see a drone less than 400 feet. Drones can't go above 400 feet though, not legally or without a certification or a requirement for that. So drones are below 400 feet. Class G is uncontrolled, so just keep your eye out for that. So in addition to these airspaces here on this chart, there are SUA. SUA is a kind of airspace that is special use airspace. It can include restricted, prohibited military operations, warning areas, alert, temporary flight restriction areas, national security areas, and probably the one you don't want to see is the controlled firing area. So you got to keep an eye on where you're at because you don't want to end up in some military simulator in real life. Now, the goal is to not crash. On Xplane, the charts are a little bit iffy, so you might not have to worry about it, but it's good to have a basis in what's going on here. So you're learning the real things, because it is a simulator after all.
When can you fly? Well, in order to fly during the nighttime, you need to be instrument rated, so it is usually recommended you put about 100 daytime hours before seeking that certification. So let's do daytime for now.
16, contact Valley Center 133.45. Friendship at 627, contact Valley Center 133.45. 3345, here's the front update. Guys, good evening. Maintain Mach 0.75 feet in the Abbey. They are messing with our schedule by year. I don't think I've looked at the ACS in, 12 months. Challenger 7 Julia Whiskey, contact Flight Center 132.4. Take it easy.